Welcome to True Betrayal Stories, where secrets are exposed, lies unravel, and justice is served. If you love shocking betrayal stories and satisfying revenge, don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into today's story, one that will leave you speechless. I used to think I had it all, a beautiful wife, two amazing kids, and a stable career that kept a roof over our heads and food on the table. Emma and I had been together for over a decade, and while life wasn't always easy, we made it work. I believed we had something real, something worth fighting for. We had survived our fair share of rough patches, but we always found a way to make up and move forward together. Or so I thought. It all started on a Wednesday morning. I was packing my suitcase for a 3-day business trip while Emma made breakfast in the kitchen. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and the sound of bacon sizzling in the pan made me smile. I walked in, suitcase in hand, and watched her for a moment, her messy bun bouncing slightly as she hummed to herself. She turned and caught me staring, flashing me that familiar smile. "What?" she teased, wiping her hands on a towel. I shrugged. "Just admiring my hard-working wife. Smells amazing in here." She laughed softly and poured me a cup of coffee. "You're too sweet. Are you sure you've got everything packed?" I took a sip, savoring the warmth. "Yeah, just a short trip this time. Should be back by Friday afternoon." She nodded, her eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. "Promise you'll call when you land?" "Of course," I said, kissing her on the cheek. "You know I always do." The kids rushed into the kitchen, their little feet pounding against the tile floor. Lily, our daughter, wrapped her arms around my leg, while Jacob, our son, tugged at my shirt. "Daddy, don't go!" Lily whined, looking up at me with those wan, pleading eyes. I knelt down and scooped her into my arms, giving her a reassuring smile. "It's just a few days, sweetie. I'll be back before you know it. Maybe I'll even bring you a souvenir." Jacob grinned, clearly liking that idea, like a toy or candy. "We'll see," I chuckled. "You two be good for Mom, okay?" Emma watched us, her smile never faltering, but there was a tension in her shoulders that I couldn't ignore. I dismissed it as stress. Taking care of the kids alone could be overwhelming sometimes. As I loaded my suitcase into the car and waved goodbye, I felt a weird sense of unease, like a pit settling in my stomach. I told myself it was just the usual anxiety before a work trip and brushed it off. The drive to the airport was uneventful, and I forced myself to focus on the upcoming presentations rather than the lingering feeling that something was off. I called Emma as soon as I landed, like I promised. She picked up after a few rings. "Hey," I greeted her, trying to sound upbeat. "Just landed. How are things at home?" Her voice sounded a bit distant. "Oh, fine. The kids are watching cartoons. Just another chaotic morning." I chuckled, trying to ease the tension I sensed. "Oh, sounds about right. Miss you already." She hesitated, then replied softly, "Miss you too." The call ended abruptly, and I couldn't help but feel a little uneasy. Emma was usually more talkative, full of little stories about the kids or her day. I tried not to overthink it, telling myself that maybe she was just tired or preoccupied. The meetings were grueling but productive. Each night, I called home to check in. Emma always answered, but her responses felt clipped and rushed. It gnawed at me, but I pushed the thoughts aside, convincing myself it was nothing. Then, on the last night of the trip, just as I was about to head to bed, my phone rang. It was our neighbor, Mr. Anderson, a retired man who had lived next door for over 20 years. "Hey, Mr. Anderson," I greeted him, surprised. "Everything all right?" There was a pause before he spoke, his voice low and uncertain. "Logan, I didn't know if I should tell you this, but I thought you should know. There's been a man coming around your house at night." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean? Who?" "I don't know him," Mr. Anderson admitted. "Tall guy, dark hair, drives a black sedan. He's been there the last couple of nights, stays late, leaves around midnight." I gripped the phone tighter, forcing myself to sound calm. "You're sure?" "I'm sure," he replied solemnly. "Didn't want to jump to conclusions, but thought you had the right to know." I thanked him and hung up, my mind racing with possibilities. I wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, but something about Emma's recent behavior clicked into place. The way she seemed distracted, the way she barely spoke to me on the phone. I couldn't sleep that night, running through every interaction over the past few months, searching for clues I might have missed. A gnawing sense of betrayal started to seep into my thoughts, but I couldn't confront her without knowing the truth. The next morning, I called my boss and made up an excuse to leave the conference early. I booked the first flight home and spent the entire journey battling the growing storm of doubt and fear. When I finally pulled into our driveway, the house looked as ordinary as ever. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for whatever I might find inside. As I stepped through the front door, Emma greeted me with surprise. "Logan, you're home early," she exclaimed, forcing a smile. "Yeah," I replied, trying to sound casual. Meetings wrapped up faster than expected. She kissed me, but I couldn't help but notice how tense she seemed. I glanced around the house, noting that it was spotless, almost unnaturally so. The kids were at school, leaving just the two of us. I set my suitcase down and took a deep breath. "Everything all right?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course," she replied quickly, too quickly. "Why wouldn't it be?" I gave her a small, forced smile. "Just checking." As she busied herself in the kitchen, I made my way to the bedroom. I needed to know. I needed to see for myself if there was any truth to what Mr. Anderson had said. I pulled open the closet door and spotted her suitcase tucked in the corner. My hands trembled as I unzipped it. Inside, I found a neatly folded dress, one I'd never seen her wear before, and a pair of high heels that looked brand new. But that wasn't the worst part. Stuffed into the side pocket was a small velvet box. I opened it to find a delicate gold necklace with a heart pendant. It wasn't from me. My heart pounded, and I searched further, pulling out a receipt from a fancy restaurant downtown. Dinner for two, complete with wine and dessert. My mind reeled as I processed the evidence, but it didn't end there. In a side compartment, I found a hotel keycard labeled Room 24. That was it, the proof I didn't want to find. I stood there, gripping the hotel keycard like it was the only thing holding me upright. My mind raced with possibilities, my heart pounding so loudly I could barely hear my own thoughts. Betrayal hit like a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air. I wanted to march into the kitchen and demand answers, but something held me back. I needed to know more. I needed the full truth before confronting her. Carefully, I put everything back exactly as I found it. My hands shook as I zipped the suitcase closed and pushed it back into the corner. I forced myself to take deep, steady breaths, wiping the sweat from my forehead. I couldn't let her see me like this. I had to stay calm and think strategically. I moved back into the living room, forcing a smile as Emma brought me a plate of food. She set it down with a little flourish, as if she were performing some wifely duty to perfection. "Hungry?" she asked, her voice unnaturally cheerful. I nodded, trying not to let my voice betray the turmoil boiling inside me. "Yeah, starving." She sat down across from me, her eyes flickering with curiosity. "You seem tense. Everything okay with work?" I forced a chuckle, pushing a forkful of food around my plate. "Just the usual stress, trying to wrap my head around everything." She gave me a sympathetic smile, completely unaware that I was only inches away from blowing her perfect little lie wide open. As I picked at my food, I couldn't help but steal glances at her, trying to understand how she could act so normal when she was living a double life. A few minutes passed before she spoke again, her tone light and conversational. "So, how were the meetings? Anything exciting?" I swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth, trying to keep my voice steady. "Nah, just numbers and projections. You know how it is." She nodded, but I could see the subtle relief in her eyes. She thought she was safe, thought I had no idea. I clenched my jaw, swallowing down the anger that threatened to erupt. I needed more proof, something undeniable, something she couldn't wiggle out of. After lunch, I told her I was going to take a nap to recover from the trip. She seemed satisfied with that, giving me a quick kiss before heading out to the garden to tend to the flowers. Once I was sure she was busy, I took her phone from the nightstand and unlocked it. I knew the password, our anniversary date. She never bothered to change it, probably thinking I would never snoop through her phone. I scrolled through her messages, feeling like a complete asshole, but I needed to know the truth. Most of the messages were mundane, chats with her sister, group texts from school about the kids' projects. But then I found a message thread labeled Mandy Work. Something about it seemed off. Emma never mentioned a coworker named Mandy. My hands trembled as I opened the chat. The first few messages were innocent enough. Some questions about schedules and office gossip. But as I scrolled further back, the tone changed. Flirtatious banter, jokes that seemed a little too intimate. And then my heart stopped when I saw a message from Mandy that read, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Same time next week?" My vision blurred with rage and I had to force myself to keep scrolling. More messages, talking about how they couldn't wait to be together again, how Alexander, the real identity behind Mandy, couldn't get enough of her. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my own phone. I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of this. I needed every piece of evidence to confront her and ensure she couldn't deny it. As I put the phone back, I heard Emma coming inside, humming softly to herself. I quickly laid down on the bed, pretending to be asleep. She peeked into the bedroom, her footsteps soft on the carpet. I felt her eyes on me, probably checking to make sure I wasn't suspicious. After a moment, she quietly left, and I let out a shaky breath. For the next few hours, I lay there, my mind racing through scenarios. I needed to be smart about this. If I confronted her too soon, she'd find a way to twist it. I couldn't let her control the narrative. I made a plan, one that would expose her in a way she couldn't escape. I wasn't just going to call her out in private. No, that would give her the chance to spin the story however she wanted. Instead, I decided to gather everyone, friends, family, coworkers, and confront her publicly. By evening, I was more composed. I knew what I had to do, and I had the determination to see it through. I called my best friend Jake and asked him to meet me at a local bar. I needed someone I could trust. Someone who would have my back no matter what. When I arrived, Jake was already at the counter, nursing a beer. He gave me a grin, but his smile faded when he saw my face. "Man, you look like hell," he said, concern lacing his voice. "What's going on?" I slid onto the stool next to him and ordered a drink. "You ever think you knew someone so well that nothing could surprise you?" Jake raised an eyebrow, sensing something serious. "Yeah, why? What's this about?" I hesitated, trying to find the words. "Emma's cheating on me." His eyes widened in shock. "What? No way. Are you sure?" I nodded, showing him the screenshots on my phone. Jake cursed under his breath, shaking his head in disbelief. "Jesus, Logan, I never would have thought. Emma always seemed so loyal." "Yeah, well, guess we both got fooled," I replied bitterly. Jake took a long swig of his beer, clearly struggling to process the news. "What are you going to do?" I stared down at my drink, a sense of grim determination settling over me. "Expose her. Make sure everyone knows the truth. I'm not letting her get away with this." He gave me a firm nod. "Whatever you need, man, I'm with you." I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of relief that I wasn't alone in this. "I'm planning a little gathering at the house, just friends and family. I'm going to confront her in front of everyone. She won't be able to lie her way out of it." Jake looked impressed. "That's bold, but you know what? She deserves it. After what she did to you and the kids, she deserves to be exposed." We sat there for a while longer, talking through the plan and making sure everything would go smoothly. Jake promised to help coordinate guests without raising suspicion, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I wasn't just going to be the guy who got cheated on. I was going to take back control of my life. When I finally returned home that night, Emma was already asleep, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her peaceful face, wondering how someone I loved so deeply could betray me so completely. But I wasn't going to let myself fall apart. I had a mission now, to take back my dignity and make sure she faced the consequences of her choices. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had barely slept at all. My mind was still reeling from everything that had happened the night before, discovering the truth, making the plan, and realizing just how far Emma's betrayal had gone. I knew I couldn't back down now. I had to see this through to the end. Emma was already up, bustling around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. The smell of coffee filled the air, and I could hear her humming softly to herself. I couldn't help but feel sick at the sight of her acting so normal when I knew the truth. How could she be so calm, so carefree, while I was drowning in the weight of what I had discovered? I forced myself to go through the motions, got dressed, greeted the kids, and made small talk with Emma as if everything was perfectly fine. Inside, I was boiling with rage, but I knew I had to keep my emotions in check. If I blew up now, it would ruin everything. "Hey," Emma said, flashing me a smile. "You seem more relaxed today. Feeling better?" I nodded, forcing a weak smile. "Yeah, just needed some sleep, I guess." She looked satisfied with that answer, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but I knew it wasn't the time. The plan was already in motion, and I couldn't afford to tip her off. As soon as Emma left to run some errands, I got to work. I called Jake to confirm the guest list, friends, family, even some of Emma's coworkers who had witnessed her and Alexander getting too close at work events. The confrontation needed to be public, somewhere she couldn't hide or lie her way out of. Jake reassured me that he'd handle the invitations discreetly. Nobody would suspect anything out of the ordinary. I knew I could count on him. He'd been my best friend since college, and if there was anyone I trusted, it was Jake. After setting everything up, I decided to pay a visit to Mr. Anderson. I wanted to thank him for having the courage to call me in the first place. Not many people would have stepped up like that. When I knocked on his door, it took him a moment to answer. He opened it cautiously and his eyes widened when he saw me. "Logan, didn't expect to see you, son. Everything all right?" I gave him a nod and forced a small smile. "Yeah, just wanted to thank you for giving me a heads up about what was going on. If it weren't for you, I might have never found out." He rubbed the back of his neck, looking a bit guilty. I wasn't sure if I should call. Didn't want to stir up trouble, but something about it just didn't sit right with me. I appreciated his honesty. "You did the right thing. Better to know the truth than to live in ignorance. Turns out your instincts were spot on." His face fell, and he glanced down at the ground. "I'm sorry, Logan. You didn't deserve that. Emma always seemed like a good woman. I never would have guessed." "Neither would I admitted, my voice tight with emotion. "But it is what it is. I just wanted to let you know that I'm dealing with it. I'm not going to let her get away with it." He gave me a supportive pat on the shoulder. "If you need anything, just holler. I'm right next door." I thanked him again and headed back home, feeling a bit lighter after the conversation. It was good to know that at least some people still had my back. When I got home, Emma was just returning from the store, juggling grocery bags. I helped her carry them inside, doing my best to act normal. She chatted on about random things, how the kid's teacher wanted to schedule a parent-teacher conference, how the neighbor's dog got loose again, but I barely registered her words. All I could think about was how she had lied to my face so easily, day after day. I couldn't wait for tonight, for the moment when the mask would finally fall and everyone would see her for who she really was. That evening, I busied myself with preparing snacks and drinks, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Emma didn't suspect a thing. She just thought it was a casual get-together with friends. She even put on a new dress, looking way too happy for someone whose world was about to collapse. Jake arrived first, giving me a subtle nod as he stepped inside. He kept his expression neutral, making small talk with Emma to keep her at ease. Slowly, more guests began to arrive. Some of our closest friends, a few family members, and even a couple of Emma's coworkers, including Lindsay. Emma played the role of the perfect hostess, greeting everyone with a bright smile and making sure drinks were topped off. I could see the way she was soaking up the attention, completely oblivious to the trap that was about to spring shut. Finally, the last guest arrived, and I knew it was time. I cleared my throat and raised my glass, signaling that I wanted everyone's attention. The room fell silent as they turned to face me, curious about what I was about to say. "I just wanted to thank everyone for coming tonight," I began, forcing a calm, steady tone. "I've been working hard lately, and it means a lot to have friends and family here to support me." Emma beamed at me, clearly thinking I was going to give some kind of heartfelt speech. She moved to stand next to me, reaching for my hand, but I gently pulled away, keeping my focus on the crowd. "But there's something I need to share with you all," I continued, my voice growing colder. "Something that's been eating away at me for a while now." Emma's smile faltered, and I could see the confusion in her eyes. Before she could say anything, I pulled out my phone and connected it to the speaker system. I hit play on the recording, the one of Emma whispering to Alexander late at night, telling him how much she missed him and couldn't wait to see him again. Gasps filled the room and Emma's face turned ghostly white. She tried to grab the phone from my hand, but I stepped back, keeping it out of reach. What is this?" she stammered, her voice trembling. I looked at her with cold, unflinching eyes. "It's the truth, Emma. The truth about your affair with Alexander. I'm done pretending. I'm done being your fool." People in the room exchanged shocked glances, and I could see the disbelief on Lindsay's face as she realized what was happening. Jake stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists as he glared at Emma. Emma looked around desperately, trying to salvage her reputation. "It's not what it sounds like. It was a mistake. I was lonely." I shook my head, unmoved by her excuses. "A mistake? You don't accidentally cheat for months on end, Emma. You don't accidentally lie to your husband every single day. She burst into tears, collapsing onto the floor as the reality of her exposure sank in. I didn't feel sorry for her, not anymore. She had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. Emma's sobs filled the room, but nobody moved to comfort her. I looked around at the stunned faces of friends and family, watching as the realization of her betrayal sank in. Even Lindsay, who had always been one of Emma's closest friends, looked horrified. Jake couldn't hold back his anger any longer. He stepped forward, pointing at Emma as his voice rang out with fury. You've got to be kidding me, Emma. After everything Logan did for you and the kids, this is how you repay him? Sneaking around with some scumbag while he's busting his ass at work? Emma looked up, her face wet with tears, but words failed her. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out, just more broken sobs. I didn't want to give her any more time to spin her lies, so I turned to the group and continued. I trusted her. I gave her everything. My loyalty, my love, my dedication as a husband and a father. And this is how she paid me back. She threw it all away for some cheap fling with Alexander. Lindsay shook her head in disbelief, stepping closer to Emma. Is this true? She demanded. You were cheating with Alexander? The guy everyone knows is a player? Are you that stupid? Emma wiped at her eyes, trying to form a coherent response. It wasn't like that. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just needed someone to make me feel wanted. Her excuse hit me like a slap in the face. I clenched my fists, trying to keep my voice steady. And I wasn't enough? After all the sacrifices I made to give you and the kids a good life, you couldn't talk to me if you were feeling neglected? Instead, you decided to destroy our family? She buried her face in her hands, unable to answer. The silence in the room was thick and suffocating. I glanced at Jake, who looked ready to knock a hole in the wall, and at Lindsay, who still seemed too shocked to process it all. Suddenly, one of Emma's colleagues, Mark, spoke up. Wait, Alexander? As in Alexander from the office? You're kidding, right? That guy has a reputation for sleeping around with half the women at work. You seriously thought he cared about you? Emma didn't respond. Her shoulders shook with sobs, and she looked like a shell of the woman I once knew. Mark let out a harsh laugh, running a hand through his hair. Wow, just wow, you risked everything for a guy who's probably bragging to his buddies about how easy you were. That's pathetic. I couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction as her own friends turned against her. It wasn't just about hurting me anymore. It was about making sure everyone saw her for who she really was. No more lies. No more pretending. Just then, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it and saw a text from Samantha, my lawyer. Alexander just got fired. HR found out about the affair. Thought you'd like to know. I couldn't help but smirk. Karma was catching up to him already. I pocketed the phone and addressed the room once more. For those who didn't know, Alexander has been fired from his job. Workplace policy prohibits relationships between employees, and he broke it. Guess his charm finally caught up with him. Lindsay shook her head, disgusted. Serves him right. I knew he was a jerk, but I never thought Emma would fall for his crap. I can't believe this. Emma finally spoke, her voice a pitiful whisper. Please, just don't hate me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I glared at her, no longer willing to let her play the victim. You didn't mean to hurt anyone? You knew exactly what you were doing. You lied to me, day after day, month after month, while sneaking around behind my back. You broke our vows. You destroyed our family. Stop pretending this was just some innocent mistake. The room fell silent, and Emma sobbed harder, but I felt nothing but emptiness. All those years of love and loyalty, crushed by her selfish choices. I turned to Jake, giving him a nod to signal that I was done. He patted my shoulder and gestured for everyone to start heading out. People left in hushed conversations, glancing at Emma with expressions ranging from pity to outright contempt. Lindsay was one of the last to leave, pausing at the door to give me a sympathetic look. You did the right thing, Logan, she said softly. She needed to be exposed. Don't let her guilt trip you into feeling bad. I nodded, appreciating her words. Thanks, Lindsay. I needed people to know the truth. Once the house was finally empty, Emma remained on the floor, still sobbing. I didn't feel the urge to comfort her, not after everything she put me through. I walked past her, heading for the door, but she reached out and grabbed my leg, her grip weak and desperate. Please, Logan, I'm so sorry. Please don't leave me. We can fix this. I swear, I'll do anything. I looked down at her, unmoved. There's nothing left to fix, Emma. You broke it beyond repair. You chose him over me, over our family. I can't just pretend that never happened. She clung to me tighter, sobbing harder. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't throw me away. I knelt down, forcing her to look at me through her tears. You threw yourself away when you decided to betray me. You don't get to beg for forgiveness now that you've been caught. You made your bed, Emma. Now lie in it. Her grip loosened, and she fell back onto the floor, broken and defeated. I stood up, took one last look at her, and walked out of the room. I needed air. I needed to be away from her suffocating presence. As I stepped outside, I took a deep breath, trying to clear the bitterness from my chest. It was over. The lie was exposed, and I no longer had to carry the weight of pretending everything was fine. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of liberation. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew one thing: I wasn't going to let Emma's betrayal define me. I was stronger than that. I was going to rebuild my life from the ground up, without her. The days that followed were a strange mix of relief and heartache. I had exposed the truth, confronted the betrayal, and finally let go of the toxic relationship that had been poisoning my life. Yet despite everything, I couldn't shake the sense of loss. I wasn't mourning Emma herself, no, that part was dead and buried. But I was mourning the dream I thought we had, the family I thought we built together. I spent most of my time focusing on the kids. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew something was different. Lily, in particular, was more clingy than usual, always wanting to sit on my lap or cuddle with me on the couch. Jacob was quieter, less energetic than usual, like he sensed the tension and was trying to stay out of the way. One evening, while the kids were coloring at the kitchen table, I decided it was time to sit them down and explain, at least a little. I didn't want them to hate their mother, but they deserved some semblance of the truth. Hey guys, I began, pulling up a chair to sit between them. Can we talk for a minute? They both looked up at me, their innocent faces full of curiosity. Lily set down her crayon and crawled into my lap, while Jacob watched me intently. What's wrong, Daddy? Lily asked, her little hands playing with the strings on my hoodie. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. You might have noticed that Mommy hasn't been around much lately. I wanted to talk to you about that. Jacob frowned. Where is she? Is she mad at us? My heart ached at the thought. I wrapped an arm around his shoulders and kissed Lily's forehead. No, buddy, she's not mad at you. You guys didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault. Sometimes, grown-ups make mistakes, and it causes problems between them. That's why Mommy and I aren't living together anymore. Lily's eyes filled with tears, and she buried her face in my chest. I miss Mommy. I hugged her tighter, fighting back my own tears. I know, sweetie. I know. You'll still get to see her sometimes, but for now, you're going to stay here with me. Jacob looked down at his coloring book, chewing on his lip. Is Mommy coming back? I didn't know how to answer that, so I chose honesty. I don't know, buddy, but no matter what happens, I promise that I'll always be here for you. We're going to be okay, you and me and Lily. We're a team. He nodded slowly, processing my words, and then leaned against me, accepting the comfort I offered. I stayed with them like that for a while, holding them close and reassuring them that they were safe and loved. Later that night, after tucking the kids into bed, I sat on the porch with a beer in hand, trying to make sense of everything. The silence was both comforting and suffocating. I knew I had made the right choice, exposing Emma and cutting her out of my life. But that didn't make the aftermath any easier to deal with. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and saw a message from Jake. Hey man, just checking in. You hanging in there? I typed back a quick response. Yeah, rough night with the kids, but we're managing. Thanks for having my back. His reply came almost instantly. Always, you're stronger than you think, Logan. Don't let this break you. I appreciated his support, but I couldn't deny the emptiness gnawing at me. I took another swig of beer and stared at the sky, wondering how long it would take for the ache to fade. A few days later, I got a call from Samantha, my lawyer. Hey, Logan, got some good news. The divorce papers have been processed, and the judge granted you full custody. Emma didn't even contest it. You're officially a free man. A weight lifted off my shoulders. Thanks, Samantha. I couldn't have done this without you. She chuckled softly. You did most of the hard work yourself. Take care of those kids, okay? They're lucky to have you. I hung up, feeling a strange sense of closure. It was finally over, the nightmare that had consumed my life for months. I could finally start rebuilding, even if it felt daunting. One evening, a week later, Lindsay stopped by with a casserole, her usual bright smile a little subdued. I invited her in, and we sat in the living room while the kids watched cartoons in the other room. "I just wanted to check on you," she said, offering a sympathetic look. "How are you holding up?" I shrugged. "It's been rough, but I'm making it. The kids are adjusting slowly." She hesitated before speaking again. "People at work are still talking about it, about Alexander getting fired and Emma being, well, exposed. Everyone's on your side for what it's worth." "That's good to know," I replied, taking a sip of coffee. "I just want to move on. Put this behind me." Lindsay gave me a soft smile. "You deserve to be happy, Logan. Don't let what she did ruin your life. You're a good man and a great dad." I couldn't help but smile back. It was nice to hear someone say that after feeling so worthless for so long. We talked for a while, and I found myself relaxing, feeling genuinely comfortable for the first time since the whole ordeal began. When she finally left, I felt a flicker of hope, like maybe I could rebuild something worthwhile out of the ashes. Maybe I could find happiness again, not just for me, but for my kids too. The next few weeks were about rebuilding. I focused on work, made time for the kids, and gradually began to let go of the anger and resentment that had consumed me. I even started going to therapy, wanting to make sure I was mentally and emotionally strong enough to support my kids through the transition. One day, as I was picking up Lily from school, she ran to me with a big smile and held up a drawing she made in class, a picture of the three of us holding hands under a bright, sunny sky. "Look, Daddy, it's us. We're happy." My heart swelled with emotion, and I knelt down to hug her tightly. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You're such a talented artist." She giggled and kissed my cheek, and in that moment I knew I was going to be okay. We were going to be okay. And as I walked back to the car with Lily in my arms, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Grateful that I had survived the worst betrayal of my life. Grateful that I still had my kids. And grateful that I had the strength to move forward. Betrayal may have tried to break me, but I refused to let it define me. I was going to build something better, something stronger, out of the ruins of my old life. And maybe someday I'd find love again. But for now, I was content to just breathe freely and embrace the new chapter that lay ahead. The weeks turned into months, and life slowly returned to a new kind of normal. I kept busy with work, took the kids on little weekend trips to the park or the lake, and focused on rebuilding our lives one step at a time. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but it became more manageable. Little by little, I felt myself growing stronger, like a tree that had survived a storm and was beginning to blossom again. The gossip about Emma and Alexander eventually faded from the community, but I knew their reputations were still stained. Alexander hadn't been able to secure another job after being fired. Word had spread through the industry, and no one wanted to hire someone with such a public scandal attached to their name. Emma, on the other hand, had moved in with her parents, who, from what I heard, weren't exactly thrilled about her choices. One Saturday afternoon, I was at the grocery store picking up snacks for the kids when I spotted Lindsay down one of the aisles. She was comparing cereal boxes, clearly debating which one to get. I couldn't help but smile at how serious she looked about the decision. "Hey," I greeted her, giving a small wave. She looked up, pleasantly surprised to see me. "Oh, hey, fancy running into you here." "Yeah, just picking up some essentials. The kids have been begging for pizza night," I replied with a grin. She laughed, shaking her head. "Sounds like a blast. You should throw in some ice cream too. Gotta make it a full party." I chuckled. "Not a bad idea. You should come by sometime. I'm sure the kids would love seeing you." Her eyes lit up for a moment, and then she hesitated, as if unsure whether I really meant it. "Are you sure? I don't want to intrude." I gave her a reassuring smile. "You're not intruding. You've been a good friend through all of this. Besides, it's about time the kids saw a friendly face that doesn't remind them of the mess we've been through." She seemed to relax at that, and we ended up chatting for a while longer. About work, about life, about how she'd been keeping herself busy. She mentioned she'd been taking some painting classes on the weekends, trying to pick up a hobby that helped her unwind. I couldn't help but admire how she kept moving forward, even with all the drama that had unfolded. Later that evening, Lindsay did come by for pizza night. The kids were thrilled to see her and insisted she sit next to them during dinner. It was refreshing to have some laughter and lightheartedness back in the house, and for a while I almost forgot about the dark cloud that had loomed over us just a few months ago. At one point, as the kids were busy decorating cookies with icing and sprinkles, Lindsay glanced over at me and smiled softly. "You seem happier," she noted. I shrugged, feeling a bit bashful. "I guess I'm just getting used to the new normal. It's weird, but I'm starting to feel like myself again." She reached out and squeezed my hand briefly. "I'm glad. You deserve to be happy, Logan." We lingered like that for a moment, just holding on to that small, comforting touch. I wasn't sure if there was something more between us or if it was just the closeness of friendship, but it felt good to have someone who genuinely cared about me. After she left that night, I found myself thinking about Lindsay more than I had before. Maybe it was the way she had been there for me when I was at my lowest. Or maybe it was just the simple kindness she showed without expecting anything in return. Whatever it was, it gave me a sense of hope, like maybe love wasn't completely out of reach after all. A few days later, I got an unexpected text from Emma. I hesitated before opening it, not sure I wanted to hear what she had to say. But curiosity got the better of me. "Logan, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've been going to therapy and trying to understand why I did what I did. I ruined our family and I hate myself for it. I know I hurt you and I'll never be able to take that back. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to become a better person for the kids' sake." I stared at the message for a long time, not sure how to respond, if I even wanted to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to block her and move on. But another part of me, one that still held on to the remnants of a decade-long relationship, couldn't help but feel something akin to pity. I took a deep breath and typed back a simple reply. "I hope therapy helps you, Emma, but I'm done. I've moved on and I'm focusing on being the best dad I can be. Take care." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. The chapter was closed, and I wasn't about to reopen it just because she was suddenly remorseful. She had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. One evening, about a month later, I took the kids to a small local fair that had set up near the park. Rides, games, food stalls. It was exactly the kind of distraction we needed. The kids were ecstatic, dragging me from booth to booth, begging to try every game and eat every treat. As we were watching Jacob try to win a stuffed bear at a ring toss game, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to see Lindsay standing there holding a bright red balloon. "Hey," she greeted with a grin. "Didn't expect to see you here." I smiled, genuinely happy to see her. "Figured the kids could use a night out, plus I'm a sucker for carnival food." She laughed. "You're in luck. There's a stand over there selling the best funnel cakes I've ever had." We ended up walking around the fair together, letting the kids run ahead while we talked and laughed. It felt normal, like a piece of my old life had merged with something new and better. At one point, Jacob finally won the bear and ran over to show us, his face glowing with pride. "Look what I got," he exclaimed, shoving the bear into my hands. Lindsay ruffled his hair affectionately. "You're a champion, Jake. That bear never stood a chance." He beamed at her, clearly enjoying the praise, and then took off to find another game. I glanced at Lindsay, and for a moment, our eyes met. Really met. I wasn't sure what compelled me, but I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers intertwined with mine, and we stood there like that, surrounded by the sounds of laughter and music. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Maybe life had thrown me through the ringer, but I wasn't broken. I was still standing, and maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for happiness after all. The night at the fair felt like a turning point, a moment where I finally let go of the weight that had been crushing me for so long. Holding Lindsay's hand, surrounded by the joyful sounds of laughter and carnival games, I realized that I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living again. As the kids played at the game stalls, Lindsay and I found a quiet bench near the carousel, where we sat and just talked. It wasn't about Emma or the past, but about life, our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. It was refreshing to share that space with someone who genuinely cared, without the shadows of betrayal lurking over us. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" Lindsay asked, her fingers tracing small patterns on the wooden bench. I nodded, considering her question. "Yeah, I used to think I had it all figured out, marriage, career, the whole package. But now, I guess I'm learning to take it one day at a time. I want to be a good dad, rebuild my life, and maybe Find happiness again. She gave me a soft smile, her eyes warm and understanding. You deserve that, Logan. After everything you've been through, you deserve to be happy. I squeezed her hand gently. So do you. I never really thanked you properly for being there, for supporting me when everything fell apart. Her cheeks flushed slightly. You don't need to thank me. I was just being a friend. Besides, you're stronger than you think. You got through it because you never gave up. Hearing her say that made something inside me shift, like a weight finally lifted from my chest. I realized that I wasn't alone in this journey, and maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to carry the burden by myself anymore. When the night finally came to an end and we walked back to the car, I felt a sense of contentment that I hadn't felt in years. The kids were yawning, half asleep in the back seat, and Lindsay gave me a gentle wave before heading to her own car. Take care, Logan, she called out. You too, I replied, giving her a grateful smile. As I drove home, I glanced at the rearview mirror and saw Lily clutching the stuffed bear Jacob had won, snuggling it against her cheek. Jacob was already fast asleep, his mouth slightly open and his head leaning against the window. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The next morning, as the sun streamed through the windows, I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside. The house felt different, warmer, lighter, like it was no longer weighed down by secrets and lies. I made breakfast, humming softly to myself as the kids came downstairs, rubbing sleep from their eyes. As we sat around the table, sharing pancakes and laughter, I couldn't help but feel grateful. Life had thrown me the worst curveball imaginable, but I hadn't let it break me. I had faced betrayal, pain, and heartbreak, but I had come out stronger. Over the next few weeks, I continued to focus on building a new routine for the kids and myself. I took them hiking on weekends, taught Jacob how to fix his bike, and let Lily help me in the garden. I found that keeping busy kept my mind clear and gave me a sense of purpose. Lindsay and I stayed in touch, hanging out casually and talking on the phone when the kids were asleep. I wasn't rushing into anything romantic, but I couldn't deny that I felt something real between us, something that gave me hope for the future. One afternoon, while Lily was drawing on the porch and Jacob was riding his bike in the driveway, Lindsay came over with a batch of freshly baked cookies. I couldn't help but smile when I saw her, feeling warmth bloom in my chest. Bribing me with cookies now? I teased. She laughed, rolling her eyes. You know my baking skills are questionable at best. I figured you'd be the judge of whether they're edible. I took a bite and made an exaggerated thinking face before giving her a thumbs up. Safe to eat. You're officially a baking genius. She playfully shoved me, and we both laughed, the sound blending with the carefree chatter of the kids. It felt right, like the universe was finally giving me a break after everything I'd been through. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the second chance I'd been given. I wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to finding out. Maybe love would come around again, and maybe Lindsay and I would be part of that story. But for now, I was content with where I was, stronger, wiser, and finally free from the chains of betrayal. And no matter what, I knew one thing for sure. I would never let anyone take my peace away again. I had fought too hard for it, and I wasn't about to let go. What do you think? Did Logan handle the situation the right way? Or do you think he should have given Emma another chance? Let us know in the comments. If you love stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe to True Betrayal Stories. We bring you the most shocking, real-life betrayals and satisfying revenge stories every week. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be careful who you trust.